Hi, I'm Jesse Rosenfeld. I'm a journalist with the Independent Media Center. I'm part of the Media Center Collective. I'm also a freelance comment journalist. I write for The Guardian's Comment and Comment is Free sections. Basically, what we've seen happen is the police effectively declare war on critical press. We saw a government that was deciding to completely stream and screen who was going to get press access, who wasn't. They built things like giant lakes to distract mainstream journalists from accessing and accessing and expressing interest in what was going on in the streets and the kind of debates that were coming out there. We have seen a consistent approach by the police to attack and block our reporting of frontline coverage, which we at the Alternative Media Center have committed ourselves to being frontline journalists, getting the story from the scene, and it's been treated with nothing but violence and contempt by the police. While I was covering the demonstration at the Novotel hotel, which was both expressing solidarity with the workers on strike as well as trying to bring attention to delegates to the issues of the G20. It was a non-violent demonstration, and it started after police forcibly evacuated the one free speech zone at Queen's Park, pushing all the demonstrators out into Bloor Street, at which point it's actually one of the most interesting political events that I've seen in Toronto. I grew up in Toronto until I was 18, and in terms of interesting political events, we basically had this organic composition of ideas and people saying, well, if we can't express our free speech anywhere, the police aren't going to let us do it anywhere, then we're going to take it to the fence and actually take this debate to the point and to the front lines where it needs to be had. We were penned in by police at different points, even though there was no violence expressed, and the media was again treated with complete and utter contempt. By the time we finally got to Novotel and were pinned in, I was with other mainstream press. I went up to them after they declared a mass arrest and asked, why is it that you intend to, how is it you intend to treat the media? And they said, at first, we're all under arrest, and then they came back saying our commanding officer said that anyone who had the lanyards of the summit would be allowed through. Now, it was interesting because I applied on June 11th for my lanyard. I filed with the Guardian letter. I've followed all the accreditation. I was even getting emails from the accredited mainstream International Media Center and Press about all the different fluffy press updates from Stephen Harper and that kind of thing, but was consistently told that I was still pending an RCMP background check, so I was never rejected. They basically just tried to delay my press access to try and delay me doing my job. And so, and the combination between that and the beating and the arrest that I received is obvious. What happened was then I went up to them, I went up to the police, I explained that I was a journalist with both the Guardian and the alternative media, that I was covering this event. They didn't seem to care. The first response I received was, well, you'll be arrested. Then when I told them about my editors, I told them about this process, they said, you'll be checked, and if it's fine, you'll be okay. They separated me from the other media. When I went over with the police completely cooperating, two other officers had pointed to me and had identified me as someone as they saw as a loudmouth kid, because I had actually been asking them questions on the front lines in previous demonstrations when I'd been seeing brutal beatings and brutal arrests, and in an attempt to silence and pick off both media and demonstrators. And so after they pointed this out to me and an officer looked at my press pass and said, we don't consider this legitimate, I was immediately jumped and severely beaten. I was hit in the stomach. I was then elbowed in the back, knocked to the ground, hit my leg. As I went down, was being hit in the back as my face was being pushed into the concrete by the police. All the time I was saying, I'm a journalist, why are you beating me? I'm not resisting arrest. After I started saying this, as if to try and cover themselves, the police started screaming, why are you resisting arrest? Don't resist arrest. And it's actually especially interesting because I work as a journalist in the Middle East. And I've been working out of the Middle East for the past 3 years, and it's completely consistent with the sort of response you see the Israelis give when they beat media, except they're a lot more forceful with their rhetoric. And so we saw a very similar kind of reaction from security forces in the streets. Now, when we were detained, the conditions in detention were nothing like a Canadian jail I'd ever seen, actually a lot more like the jails that I had seen working in the Middle East, seeing jails that Israelis house for Palestinians, and as well as Palestinian Authority jails. And what we were seeing was cells without bathrooms, without benches, 5 feet by 8 feet, with 6 people crammed into them on a frozen concrete floor in freezing conditions where you couldn't even sleep. The police treated us with complete contempt, assuming that our rights were not guaranteed human rights, but something that were negotiable on the basis of our actions. And apparently for us, the actions were being critical of their actions, of the government's actions, and discussing what people in the streets were coming out with. There were people that were beaten in jail. There were people who were not getting medical attention, or they were not administered their medications. I wasn't given a phone call till 3 in the afternoon. This was consistent with everyone else. And frankly, the only reason they got out of there was because they needed to clear the cells to bring in people that had come out to the jail solidarity meetings, demonstrations to show support for both independent media and everyone else that had been arrested and targeted by the police this weekend.
Peter?
Are you going to stand for questions or no?
Yeah, but we're going to go, we're doing with open statements, and then we'll go to questions.